As a kid, I spent thousands of days taking the bus to Chinatown and eating dim sum with my grandmother. And later in life, she taught me how to make some of the dishes we'd be eating in the Chinatown dim sum halls. Today, I'm gonna show you how to make a fundamental dish that's ubiquitous with dim sum, Char Siu Bao. It's a Cantonese red roasted pork inside a steam bun, and I'm gonna show you how to make it with a modern day appliance, the air fryer. Hey team, I am Jet Tila, and this is Ready Jet Cook, where I show you how to make my favorite Asian dishes from pantry to plate. And really quick, let's take a second to subscribe. Okay, let's get cooking. So some of the special ingredients to make Char Siu Bao are gonna be hoisin sauce, 5-spice powder, and some red yeast rice powder. We're gonna get there in a second. It is a very fun, cool ingredient. This is actually 2 in 1, because first we're gonna make the Chinese barbecue pork, and then I'm gonna show you how to cut it up, make it a stuffing, and then create the buns and put it all together. All right, so let's start with the barbecue pork marinade. It's a lot of ingredients, but they each have their very specific function. Hoisin sauce being the first one. Now, hoisin is a sweet bean sauce. So fermented soybeans, not salty, very sticky, really good for barbecue in general, not just Chinese barbecue. Then 5-spice powder, which is a collection of 5 different spices. But the one that you're gonna probably smell the most is going to be cinnamon. But there's fennel in here, there's pepper in here. It's a very warming spice, and it is a very dominant seasoning in Chinese culture. So the next one is really fun. A lot of the Chinese barbecue pork that you find in restaurants is loaded with food coloring to make it red. Back in the day, OG grandmothers would actually use this. It's a type of rice. It's called red yeast rice. But if you grind that rice down, it creates this gorgeous red color. So this is the natural way to get to that very red Chinese barbecue pork. Moving on down the line now, we've got thin soy sauce. Ketchup, yes, don't at me. Ketchup has a beautiful amount of sweetness, has a nice amount of acidity, and really ties this together quite well. Oyster sauce, we need to get that kind of thickness, glaze, and sweetness, so just some plain old honey works here. And then we want to use a little bit of sherry. We're gonna add a little bit more sugar here. And then the 2 aromatics are gonna be ginger and garlic. And if you've never used a rasp, it is a phenomenal tool. I really don't peel this ginger. All that is pure ginger pulp, no fibers, and I'm gonna tap that right into the bowl. All right, the next 2 cloves of garlic. I like to cut the back end off of the garlic, and that way the cloves separate very easily. The knife will help loosen these cloves up. But I want them on the whole side so I can run them along the rasp. So pure garlic pulp right there. So that's it, that's the marinade. You see how that red yeast rice powder is activating once it hydrates? Look at that red color. It's pretty stunning, I gotta say. Marinade is done, but before I swim my pork shoulder in here, I'm gonna separate a 1/4 cup, and I'm gonna add honey to that later to create a glaze for the actual cooking. So we're gonna actually be basting with this beautiful glaze. There it is, all right. This is probably one of the most prized pieces of pork there is. It is the shoulder. So I wanna create enough surface area so each side of this pork gets that love from the marinade. So this pork is pretty well submerged. Now we're gonna go in the fridge for a few hours overnight. Longer the better on this one. I have one done, and I'm gonna pull that out so we can get cooking. So I do want to take a second and talk about the air fryer. In China, they actually use forced air ovens, so a lot of heat and a lot of air, and that's why the air fryer is perfect. I really like cooking in these sheet pans that have an elevated rack because I do want air to get all the way around this. You're gonna get a really beautiful roast and those charred ends that get really crispy. You absolutely want to remove some of the marinade off this pork because there's a lot of sugar in here, and as we know, sugar tends to burn. So I'm just taking 1 or 2 sheets of paper towels, using tongs, so I'm not touching the pork, and just gently dabbing off a majority of that marinade. I've set the air fryer to 350 degrees on air fry, which all that means is it's running a huge fan inside, and that's gonna create that convection or forced air oven that's gonna char those edges and not dry out this pork as it cooks. All right, so this pork is ready to go. So we've been cooking the pork for about 15 minutes, and as you can see, it's starting to get nice and kind of caramely on the outside. Here's one more step to build even more flavor. We're gonna make a glaze. This is the reserved quarter cup of the original marinade with all those kind of sweet and savory flavors in there, and we're gonna reinforce that with a good amount of honey. It's actually gonna lock in the moisture of all the juices inside the pork. It's gonna make it super tender and moist on the inside. I'm starting to get a nice caramelization on the top side. I'm gonna take this glaze and just lock in all that flavor. And all that sugar on the exterior is going to get into that hot oven and further caramelize and get a little bit crispy. I'm basting once. If you fall in love with this glaze and want to do it 2 or 3 times, I'm not going to be mad at you. This is also the glaze that you can hold your pork in after the cook so it doesn't dry out. All right, so we're going back in for about 5 or 10 more minutes or 165 degrees internal temperature. So while the pork finishes cooking, I'm gonna pull all the bun ingredients and show you how to make the bao dough. So this is that bun at the dim sum restaurant. That's that white fluffy bun, sometimes filled, sometimes not. In the mixing bowl, I'm gonna start with a little bit of cake flour, and I'm using cake flour because I want a very light fluffy dough. I'm gonna put the sugar in there. This is baking powder, not baking soda. And then I'm using instant dry yeast, so I can mix it in dry and very slowly. I just wanna kind of aerate and combine all of these dries. All right, so I've got half a cup of water. I'm gonna start my mixer and just slowly add my water in. I like to stop the mixer and then kind of get that dry bits of flour. So eventually all of the dries are gonna grab on to the water, hydrate, and then form into one nice dough. You can start to see it pulling together. All right, so the dough ball has pulled together. All of that motion has created a nice amount of gluten. All that's gonna translate into nice puffy dough. So here is where my grandmother would have added a nice tablespoon of lard. Lard is a fat that comes from pigs that is firm at room temperature. If you don't wanna use it, or if you're not really excited about using lard, some vegetable shortening is gonna be great, but you do wanna add that fat in here. So I'm literally just kind of scraping it and pushing it onto the dough on the bottom of the hook, and it's gonna work together beautifully. This is gonna give the dough real beautiful richness. All right, that's looking good. It's super smooth. It looks nice and puffy, and I think it's time to pull our pork. Let's see. Oh yeah, look at that. I mean, come on. That's it right there. Perfect Chinese barbecue pork by itself. This is done. Slice it up, eat it over rice, eat it in noodles. It is the perfect ingredient. All right, so this dough ball is done. We're gonna need to let it rest now. So I have a clean bowl. I'm gonna lightly oil this bowl. I'm using pan spray, but just a little bit of vegetable oil is gonna work great. So what we need to do now is allow this dough ball to rest from all that kneading, and the yeast is gonna help it double in size. And then we're gonna be making our filling to complete our buns. All right, so we're just gonna cover this with a little wrap. Let this rest for about 90 minutes. Okay, so these vegetables are actually gonna become almost like a stock, like a very strong liquid base that's gonna encapsulate all the cut pork. It's a very cool technique. So I've started a saute pan on high. I'm gonna pour a little bit of oil until it coats the bottom, and we're gonna saute these veg up. So I'm not really looking for any specific cut. I just want them kind of even dices. So I'm doing probably about a 3/4 inch dice. So, and I kind of like to cook as I go, meaning I'm cutting onions first because that goes into the pan first. And what we're doing is actually pulling the flavor out of all these ingredients because we're actually gonna fish them out. So we're gonna cook all the essential oils out of them to kind of season our filling. So I've got a green bell, a red bell, and I only need half. And I'm not too worried about size. Medium dice is gonna work here. So I've got a really nice bunch of scallions. This practice of using very hot oil to extract the essential oils of all of these aromatics is a very old technique that we're gonna use here to make this filling. So we're really gonna cook that down as we pull out our other ingredients now. I'm cooking this on full blast because I really wanna break these down, and as they break down, they're gonna bring their flavors into this stock. All right, so next I'm gonna add sugar and our seasonings. So we've got light soy sauce here. We've got oyster sauce, and I've got some dark soy or black soy. Really get in there and allow this all to come to a nice boil. That boiling is gonna continue to break down these vegetables. It really cooks a lot like a stir fry, so nothing too complicated here. It smells incredible in here. And now I'm gonna add water, so we're pulling out the flavor of the vegetable. Again, we're building this very incredible, rich stock. The vegetables have done their job, and it's time to get them out of there now. I know, you're like, you're just throwing away these veggies, bro. Like, what's the deal? They've given us all they can in terms of flavor, and that liquid now is gonna bind with the pork. We're gonna thicken it up, and that's gonna be our char siu filling. It's time to turn this liquid into a paste. I've got water, and into this water, I'm adding a combination of potato starch and cornstarch. We're not just gonna thicken, we're gonna take this down almost to a gum, like a paste. My liquid is at a simmer. I'm gonna add my slurry in. And you're gonna see this go from a liquid to a sauce, then reduce down into a paste very quickly. Look at that, almost like a gel. And the reason why we want this pork inside this thicker gel casing is because, remember, we're gonna put all this pork into a bread, into a bao. We don't want it kind of steaming out and diluting that dough. I'm gonna switch over to a spoon. So I'm gonna cook this down until it almost can't run off the spoon. So what I'm looking for is, you see how that's running? I'm still gonna cook a little more water out of this until it's a stable gel and it doesn't pull off the spoon. All right, let's cut some pork. Usually fresh char siu is for the plate to eat. This could be like second day char siu, but you're getting the good stuff right there. Look at that cook. That is perfect. 165, the red color of that yeast rice has permeated. Wait, sorry, I got to. I'm sorry. This is the best Scooby snacks right here, I gotta say. That sweetness and the umami, the depth of flavor on barbecue pork is so outstanding. I'm gonna quarter turn now, and now cut it into small dice. So here we go. So let's continue cooking this. And that's it, team. This is going to tighten up into a very tight gel filling, and then we're gonna let that cool, and we're gonna finish our bao buns. All right, so the dough has been resting. It has doubled in size. My finger leaves an impression. That's exactly what I want. I'm gonna use a little bit of bench flour and then actually get the dough out. So what I'm trying to do is create a rectangular sheet. So I'm just gonna roll out from the middle. What we're going for is a 1/2 inch thick, square it off. Now what I'm gonna do is grab the sides. We're actually gonna now almost kind of laminate it. We're gonna create layers inside the dough by just rolling it up. And now I'm gonna cut this into 6 equal pieces. So if I start from the middle, I'll go 3, and we'll go 3 here. So I've created all the layers. I'm actually gonna press down this way, kind of top to bottom. And if you look really tight, you can start to see these little layers. And once this steams, they're gonna kind of open up and get vertical. That's the beauty of this technique. So it's time to roll these out. So I'm gonna take about 2 to 3 tablespoons of filling to put into the middle. There's a few ways you could do this, but I think the easiest way to begin is what I kind of call the tulip fold. So I'm gonna bring 2 sides together and create 3 sections here, all right? 3 very distinct sections, just like that. And then I'm going to pinch those off to seal them very tightly. I don't want anything coming out of this bao. So with the 3 sections, I'm gonna pull those corners, join them in the middle, now capturing it in my hand so I can start shaping. And you see these seams that I've created, the 3 seams? Push those seams together now, and that's it. I like the tulip fold a lot. So it's really important that you get a full rolling boil on your steamer. A variety of steamers can work. I just have the normal kind of 10-inch steamer basket. I've got about 3 inches of water, and as you can see, it is at a very aggressive steam. And that's important because you want to get that flour spring. This has to kind of heat up really quick to like 200 degrees and get that initial push, and that's going to activate that yeast. So all my baos are ready to go. Get them right in, close it tight to encapsulate that steam. So I'm gonna push the lid down, making sure I have a good seal. And don't peek. Resist the urge for at least 5 to 6 minutes. We're gonna do an 8-minute full steam, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna see these poofy, perfect Char Siu Bao. Okay, so it's been 8 minutes. I'm gonna be brave and check my steamer, hoping for puffy baos. Oh, yes. Where's the angel music when I need it, guys? You know you've done your job when those tulip folds actually open up. That's perfect, nice and pillowy. This is full steam, so carefully pulling these out onto a plate. I'm gonna let these cool down because they are quite hot. The smell is of almost like cotton candy, yeasty like sourdough. All right, so let's crack one open. That's it right there. Beautifully cakey on the outside, that Chinese barbecue pork on the inside. There's something really satisfying about cracking a recipe that you've eaten since you were a child, like with your grandmother, and figuring it out and making it. She's watching and she'd be super proud of me today. This is fun. It's a very nostalgic dish and it takes me right back to my childhood. The dough, tighter than a cake, but not quite, spongy. The filling is salty, it's sweet, it's got all those flavors of 5 spice. It is absolutely an amazing accomplishment to be making Char Siu Bao at home. Guys, I hope you had fun making this with me. If you enjoyed yourself, hit that like button below. Post any comments or questions you have, we will get to them. Thanks so much for hanging out today on Ready, Jet, Cook. We'll see you later.